Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Forever Bristol City podcast. We're in a buoyant mood today because the final score at Ashton Gate, it finished City 4, Hull City 2, 8 points on the board, 4 games played. What's not to like about that? And a game that, as I said on the headline I put on the forum, if Carlsberg did football matches, it would be like yesterday's game against the Tigers from East Yorkshire. I'm delighted today to be joined by Dave Fevs and Mark Tubby. Actually, Dave Tubby was meant to be hosting today, but he's poorly, so I hope you're getting well soon, Dave. I think he's got a bit of a virus, and he's moving from Spain up to Germany, and that in itself, after 15 years in Madrid, I think it is pretty stressful. So, Dave, if you're listening, hope you get well soon. And you can do the Sheffield Wednesday game in a couple of weeks because we've got an international break coming up and also the closure of the transfer window. As I always do, chaps, you first, Dave Fevs. Thoughts on the final whistle as you walked out of Ashton Gate?
I've never been so miserable walking out of Ashton Gate as yesterday. No, it was a bit of a buzz, wasn't it? Even in the pouring rain and stuck in the car park trying to get out, and they seemed to hold us back for ages. It was just, actually I just get more chance to listen to BBC Radio Bristol and all the positives coming out. So no, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, what if you had to pick one standout moment for you? What was it? Just one.
I think probably the way we responded to going one down. Really, I think it was, we were straight up and at them, weren't we? And I think there were probably a couple of little things as well. There was Zach Viner beckoning the south stand to get behind us after the goal went in, and Radek giving Rob Atkinson a big hug as well, like, come on, back on the game. So I think it was the response was really good.
Excellent. Mark, your thoughts?
Best home game since the Millwall 4-3 last season. I mean, we watch, most football is boring tactical drudge 9 times out of 10. If you want two teams playing open football and entertainment, that was a game to watch. It could have been 5-5, it could have been 7-1 to City. There were that many chances. I think we had 29 and they had 18 shots. It was an incredible game of football. Vitek scooping the ball away from the Burnley's header. The use of Zach Viner and playing the ball to the back post, and with McCrory coming in from wing back, Anna Randall's industry, Reece lightning across the ground, the whole team responding positively to a bad mistake for the first goal, and it was a well-deserved win. Credit to Hull, they looked good going forward, very poor at the back, but City looked like competitors for the top 6. If we've got the basis of last season's side, we've added some quality. We know we need to make some additions in the window to make the side a little bit more balanced, especially on the left-hand side. But things are looking up. And Struber ball, what he promised, that was the front foot football we were looking at. And, families, people who have stayed away, come back to Ashton Gate because you're going to go see very entertaining football. Sometimes we're going to concede a few goals, but we're going out there to win and play front foot football. And I'm absolutely delighted. It was fantastic to watch. Well done.
Yeah, I think as well, you've got to give credit to Hull City because they were on the back of a 3-0 defeat at home against Blackburn the previous week. They didn't part the bus at all. Even at 3-1, I didn't feel 100% secure because they looked lively. Decent side, no real standout player. I must say no real standout players, no big names in their lineup. KP 45 came on towards the end, but no, it was a great advertisement for football. And you say, Mark, about the crowd, rocking back. I mean, Hull didn't bring that many, and there was still 21,400 in the ground. So if there'd been decent away support, it would have been another crowd nudging 24,000, which is absolutely amazing. Dave, the lineup, predictable, really. And if you look at the bench, maybe that's where few questions there. But what were your thoughts when you saw the lineup, as you predicted or as you anticipated?
I think 9 of the 11 were, I think, what all of us would have predicted. I think the kind of quite large debate, I think, is who plays wing backs, and I think I probably come to the conclusion before yesterday that you hear lots of kind of chat, don't you, that, oh, Ross can't play on the left-hand side, you know, because he's had a couple of good games on the right-hand side. Yet last season, people were saying exactly the opposite. So I think, you know, the fickle Bristol City fan, I think we just have to realise, you know, my old mantra is a squad game, and certainly in the wing-backs, we've got definitely 3 that we're kind of perming 2 out of 3 every game. And I don't think, you know, apart from probably Sykes, who probably you wouldn't want to put on the left-hand side, I think you can perm those 3 into either positions, you know, and they're all playing relatively well, I think. So yeah, I think that I might have played Hirakawa. I don't know really.
Well, we got options, Dave, haven't we? That's the key thing.
Exactly, David.
Yeah, Mark, your thoughts on am I being a bit disrespectful to Hull, saying they got no real standout players in their lineup? I hadn't heard of their manager before. I don't know too much about him, but what do you think?
Just quick ones. Ray Romano, Bill Tubby was my granddad, Tom Tubby's cousin. So I'm distantly related to Bill Tubby, the former City player and kit man who left in '82. His son Nigel was out in California with Gary Collier. So shout out to Ray. What was the question again?
I thought you were answering it. There was no real names in that. Trying to work
No,
it out.
I thought Akintola, when he had his first game, he looked very good. There was a guy that played on the left, and they had genuine pace. It showed it when they made a mistake for the first goal, and that's what I was worried about. When we play those high wing backs, we do tend to play a high defensive line. And I was thinking a little bit like the Ange Postecoglou line. It maybe at times we could get done by teams, you know, playing the ball behind our defenders and beating those wing backs. You know, Joe Gelhart's known for his blistering pace and proved that with the opening goal. So we can be a little bit open at the back. But I was impressed with Akintola, and the other guy, the only known name I think they had was Ollie McBurney, who's been around a bit, Barnsley, Swansea, Sheffield United. I didn't know that he'd gone off to Las Palmas and of course in Gran Canaria and joined them on a free. I mean, a guy that's like, he's got absolutely no body fat. He actually looks like a road racing cyclist, doesn't he? He's just so thin and beaky. He didn't look like a footballer at all, does he? He just looks like a bit of streaky bacon. And he was the only player that I knew in that whole team.
Yeah. Let's get into the action. There was a lot of it. Started on the 3rd minute the wrong way. I said to the person I took to the game yesterday, I mean, and 2 goals.
You took another person to the game?
Yeah, I took a person. No, my old school friend, Richard, he's listening. Morning, Rich. I said it just shows the folly of players trying to do the Pep Guardiola play out from the back all the time. Dave, Rob will be disappointed with himself that he lost control of that ball there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a poor touch, and he's had kind of like a double touch off one foot onto the other, and he's given the ball to Akintola. I think just go back to Mark's point, you know, the only person knew was McBurney. Well, I'm sure you'd heard of Gelhart. And if you haven't heard of Charlie Hughes,
apart from Gelhart, sorry. I've done it again, haven't I? This happens every time you're on, Dave.
Mark, Dave's talking.
Sorry,
we should have several. You know, if we follow the Championship, we should know several of their players. That they've got some decent players in fairness, but Ndala and Akintola were lightning. So I think I don't think we're necessarily slow at the back, but we're going to get exposed by quick players like that. He was rapid, Akintola, really was. But the goal was disappointing, Dave. You know, and I think what you're seeing there is the way that we kind of structure the team is, and I guess you can almost blame Jason Knight a little bit as well for that. And he's played the ball to Atkinson, but then he's kind of then ran forward, which is this is what you're going to get with the way Struber plays, and that left us exposed. He's gone in and filled in between the two sets, between him and Dickey, between Atkinson and Dickey, and then he's moved forward, and of course then he's left Atkinson on his own when he miscontrols it. But as I said after the Sheffield United game, you got to take the rough with the smooth here, and there's plenty more smooth than there is rough at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
James, just quickly, yes, it is the best. It is the best start in 5 years.
That's the Dean Holden season, isn't it? When he won the opening 4 games. Yeah. At least we haven't got Callum O'Dowda in the squad or anywhere near the club to screw it up like they did at Barnsley. I see.
Last 30 seconds, we were 2-1 up.
Mark, we'll talk about Rajek later on, the one-hander, but that was a good finish by Gelhardt. It was a bit like the goal that Andy Weimann scored against Hull. He chipped it over the goalkeeper, but did you think he could have made himself bigger? He didn't seem to come rushing out, but he seemed a bit hesitant. Am I being harsh there?
People around me were saying something similar. I think with Gelhardt's pace, he was always going to get a shot, and it was an excellent finish. He made himself big, like he did against Tyrese Campbell for Sheffield United. I don't think there was much he could do. So it was an excellent finish and good pass through by Akintola. I mean, there was no danger around Atkinson when he made that mistake. And I think I remarked to Paul that I sit next to, in driving rain on a slippery pitch, there were going to be mistakes. You just didn't expect them that early. I was sorry to talk over Dave. This seems to happen every single time Dave's on. I always make a mistake and put my foot in my mouth. I come up with some statement and Dave has to correct me. And it's something that's bleeding obvious. I still get it wrong. It just seems to be every single time. I feel like I'm embarrassing myself. Sorry.
Double act, Mark. It's a double act.
I got to laugh at one of the comments coming up here from Henry Fisher. FBC bingo sheet. Busy bees at the ready. Nice one, Henry. Doubtless that will get mentioned. Dave, am I a bit not critical of Rajek, because Vitek, I keep getting the surname and the Christian name mixed up. He did seem to be caught in a little bit of no man's land just for a minute. And a couple of times his positional play, ignoring the saves, he seemed a bit wayward.
I think it's one of those ones where the pass to Gelhardt's probably so good, it's going to catch you a little bit caught between do I come or do I stay? And, I think if he does come out full-blooded, then Gelhardt might go round him, might bring him down, might be a penalty, and you're into problems that way as well. So it'd been great if he'd have been able to come another yard maybe and maybe get something on it, but I think we're splitting hairs a little bit on it.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll stick with you, Dave. I mean, you're thinking, 1-0 down, here we go, a continuation of a little bit of indifferent form against both Fulham and the disappointment of conceding against Derby on the previous Friday. And then the 0-0, and you're thinking, oh my God, are we going to go into the international break with maybe 1 point or none, making it an average start to the season? But then we seemed as though we came back, Knight and McCrory having shots blocked, as did Twine, Reece as well, getting involved. Dave, just explain to me, because I don't understand it. I felt we were surging on them for a period, and when the equaliser came, it was no more than we deserved. But what's the difference between the press and the Gegen press to those? Because I've heard you or others use those terms. What does that mean in layman's terms?
So I guess not a lot of difference really. It's all mumbo jumbo, isn't it? Really, but no. The Gegenpress is the kind of what's come out of kind of Red Bull football and Klopp and Rangnick in terms of like really, really high intensity and high up the pitch. But also the bit that I think often gets missed is the kind of counter pressing part of it, which is when you lose the ball back. When you lose the ball, you try and get it back within 5 seconds, and you can only do some of that if you're playing as quite a condensed team. Probably the real exception to that is Barcelona, who managed to be really, really expansive when they had the ball and then get back together really, really, really quickly when they didn't. But typically, this is the way that they try and play that. And if anyone's seen my Twitter this morning, plug, I put up a little graphic. We created 23 shots from Hull turning over the ball in their own half.
Yeah.
And that
I think you said in the final third, Dave. It was actually in the final third.
A lot of them were, in the final third, which is incredible, really. But I think people also think about the kind of pressing that people just be running around like loonies all the time is actually quite structured. It's about triggering the press at the right point, So then you've got players around the ball to put the ball receiver under pressure and win it back. But yeah, I don't think it's as complicated as, or nuanced as people try and make out. It's just trying to win the ball back quickly, really, but doing it with a fair bit of structure. I don't know if that helps people or you, Dave.
Or me. Well, it needs to help me. I never professed to be an expert on technical matters. The goal then, Mark. Reece has shown he's got that instinct in front of goal, but I looked at it again, and we're going to talk about Zach Viner for those of you asking on the text feed for different reasons. But that was a pretty decent cross that Viner put in for McCrory to set up Reece, wasn't it? How did you see it from your position?
Viner seems to be the split centre back who's making the storm and runs forward. Last week against Charlton, it's Rob Atkinson. But this tactic of playing the ball to the back post with Ross McCrory storming in, absolutely brilliant. And he gets a great left foot to it. And there's Reece on Johnny on the spot, straight in the back of the net. And if a player deserves a goal, Emil Reece Jacobson does. His work rate in the first few games have been absolutely fantastic. He really helped us win that game at Sheffield United with his strength and his ability to switch wings and link up play. I think we needed a good understudy to him, because I think if we lose him to injury with what we got, we'll be in trouble. But that it was a lovely flat cross to the back post. But McCrory does well to wrap his foot around it and just put it straight back, and Jacobson just storms in and smacks it into the back of the net. But it was the constant pressure that we exerted. And what Dave was saying about the difference between the press, about ball recovery, I think is something I picked up, and you've probably heard this before, in rugby union and rugby league. They do the similar things. When they lose the ball, in New Zealand team, England team, they work on so many seconds in terms of getting the ball, retaining possession. There's something been around in rugby for a long time now, but seems to transfer over to football, or it's something that hasn't been as well, maybe to me, as well publicised. But the ball recovery is one of the biggest priorities in the game. If you can do that deep in opposition half, you're going to get chances. Yeah. And we did that excellently yesterday. I saw some diagrams. I remember in the Euros when England were giving away goals from playing out from the back. I think it was particularly against Sweden, and it was like the Swedes had a hexagon of players surrounding the player out from the back, so it was almost impossible if they weren't able to find a player facing forward, that they were just going to lose the ball. And that's what you do, and that's how you make chances, because the closer you are to the goal, the easier it's going to be to score. Simple as that.
And I take your point there about Sweden. They did have a particular style of play back in the 80s, 90s, that how you described it. I do remember that. I'm trying to remember the names of some of the players that used to play for them at that time.
I was talking about the women's. I think the women's was it? Yeah, the women's Euros, because you see drawing these diagrams of where all the players were positioned when England tried to play out the back, and you knew if they made a mistake pass into the next player, unless they're facing forward, if you play them to somebody with their back to play, and we did this several times last season, you got somebody steaming in behind them, then you lose possession. Easy.
Well, we had to wait until just the half-hour mark for City to take the lead, Dave. And I know it was McCrory for Mehmeti, but Twine was involved. We haven't spoken to you for a few games, Dave. Twine is starting to show that he's beginning to start to show he's worth what we paid for him, because it was his little pass. And, a guy who was attending his first game, a regular season ticket holder, he said, I bet you're having to keep your mouth shut now with Twine doing so well. I've been hypercritical of him. But it's his work rate as much as anything else, Dave, isn't it?
I think there's two, well, probably three things, a bit like this Monty Python Spanish Inquisition. There's just one more thing, but I think some of the criticism layered at him last season was justified. I don't think he was good. I don't think he was bad either, but he was somewhere in between, and I think we expected more. But I think this season there's two main things. I think one is the work rate is definitely more. You know, I saw him running back length of the field yesterday. He didn't get back in, you know, to stop the whole bloke, but the intent was there to kind of, you know, run 70, 80 yards back, you know, because it might help the team. And I think that's a big difference. But the other difference for me is when Scott Twine's getting the ball now, he's getting the ball, he's able to turn. Whereas under Manning, and the Manning probably fans will probably have a go at me here, but most of the time when he drifted out into those kind of right, you know, towards the wing spaces, it was often done with a player up his arse, and all he was doing was getting the ball, just popping it back to the person who gave it to. Now he's getting the ball in space because he's getting it early, and he's able to face up, and he's able then to drive forward. And you know, it's a very different Scott Twine to what we were seeing last season, and long may it continue.
Yeah. And the goal, Dave, McCrory, we say he's a right-sided player, but if you think the winner, or what he scored against West Brom towards the end of last season, and the goals that he scored, I guess he's dangerous on either side, but it was his header into Mehmeti, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a really good early ball from Twine, wasn't it? From the kind of right side, but from deep. And I don't expect Drame really fancied a challenge with McCrory bearing down on him like that. And you know, when you've got the run on your fullback at the back post, you know you're probably going to win the header most times. And fair play to Mehmeti, he got himself in a good position. I know it looked an easy finish, but I think it was almost like slightly behind him, and so I thought he did just well.
Yeah, you're right. If you look at it, you're right. He had to almost angle his body and hook it round himself, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. So you know, on his you know, probably weaker left foot as well. You know, things can go wrong from that. So he tucked that away quite nicely. But yeah, it's just a really, you know, won the ball up high again, played the early ball whilst their defence wasn't set. It ain't rocket science.
Yeah. Mark, deserving to take that lead. Mehmeti, you know, he's another player that's out of contract, but he seems to be getting a lot of minutes under the new manager, who does like him. At the podcasters little get together that we had back in July, Struber said he likes Mehmeti, not only his skill but his thinking. Dave said that was quite a cool finish from him when it was not as easy as it looked, maybe.
No, because he had to hit the ball down. So it's difficult to control when you're coming down onto the ball like that. Could easily, if he's got his head up, and sometimes he lifts his head up, as we'll talk about later. He actually kept his composure, hit the ball down into the downwards and through the keeper. But it's for me again, that tactic of playing the ball to the far post, quite old-fashioned, really, using McCrory coming in from the left and heading the ball across Drame, and you know, there's Mehmeti on the spot, another forward burying the ball. And going back to what you said about Scott Twine, I think he seems to be sort of grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. You were right. He was playing. Sometimes he played far too deep. He drift out of games, and he'd go looking for the ball, and just played far too deep and be ineffective. And then he'd get knocked over, and he was just basically moaning about, you know, players would get under his skin. He complained to the referee about foul after foul and not get anything. And now sometimes he plays. He's playing a number 9 role. That front three is when our attack is quite fluid, and they're linking together really well. And I think Twine has upped his game, because I saw him last season as a show pony who scored free kicks, didn't really deliver value for money. This season he's looking far better, looking like the investment we made, the marquee investment from Burnley that he should have been. And I think if he carries on with that form, and with Reece, the strength of Reece, and if Mehmeti, some of his decision making, he makes a few too many touches sometimes, but when he makes instant decisions and hits the ball cleanly, he can be devastating. So with those 3 and 4, I think, you know, we're looking at the table a great front 3 with the Mick Lynch formation, the RMC. Can't go wrong, can you?
Dave, Alan Gwinnell on the text feed has put here, we do look a lot fitter this season and more intense defence and tackling. And it was interesting, again, at that pre-sort of conference thing we had back in July. I asked Sheridan what she noticed, that's Sheridan, the communications person, about training. And she said shorter, but more intense. Or maybe she didn't say shorter. She definitely said intense. Do you think that there is something about us, fitness and intensity, that we didn't have last season?
I don't know about fitness overall, Dave, and whether it's enough to last lots and lots of 90 minutes across the season. We'll find out. But the key to the training over the summer from other people who I've spoken to is that it is, the sessions were shorter, but they're more intense and more focused with the ball. And I know it's not like the good old days where you go to pre-season, you don't see a football for 2 weeks. All of the training is done pretty much with a football these days, but all of those kind of counter pressing drills and things like that would have been a fundamental part of those first couple of weeks of pre-season training. And we saw some of that in the videos. And the kind of funny thing with Gerhard saying something like, Ross, this is only training, because Ross is probably storming around firing into people and in training. But I think you build that intensity into training, then it comes naturally on the pitch as well. But we'll have to wait and see how the kind of fatigue and rest and rotation happens as we go through the season, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll stick with you, Dave. I mean, the goal that gave City a decisive lead on 42 minutes. I should have checked. One of their defenders lost the ball. I can't remember which one it was. Yeah, I don't know which one it was.
Charlie Hughes, I think it was.
Charlie Hughes. I was going to have a punt at Hughes, but I mean, Dave, for a big man, I mean, he's a big bloke, Reece. He's not a slender beanpole, but he moved forward at pace, and that was a classy finish for him for his second goal of the game, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think Mark talking about we don't know many of the whole players. Charlie Hughes is subject to a £10 million bid from Coventry at the moment. So, and is he? He's well up there on my list of centre backs I'd love, but he's well out of our price range. But I think that challenge on Emil Reece yesterday showed the sign of a man who probably didn't want to get injured ahead of a big move. So no.
All right, that's okay. What's the background to Charlie Hughes then? That's such a Coventry coming in with 10 million, and you can guess why I'm asking.
I think he made his debut, Dave. It might be his debut, or one of his very, very first starts for Wigan at Ashton Gate a couple of seasons back. And I couldn't believe this kid was whatever he was, 19 at the time. He was like a bloke playing in a 19-year-old's body, and kind of then watched him a few times for Wigan since, and then he moved to Hull last summer for several million. It was 3, 4, 5 million he moved for last.
So they've doubled their value on him in a year. And how old is he now then, Dave? He's
probably about 22, I expect. Something 22. Like that. It's not very old. So
all right, okay. Well, we've got to talk about Zach Viner later, but it does put into context if they're prepared to pay that sort of money for a defender and what's being talked about for Zach. But I want to talk about transfer and the window later on.
Reece never looked like missing, did he?
He didn't. No.
There couldn't have been anyone in the ground yesterday, not a City fan anyway, who thought he ain't going to score this. He just, streaked away, left himself enough room between the covering defender as well, and then Pander.
It's effortless and confidence. Confidence, where other players would be, sort of, you think Mehmeti might take an extra touch or something like that. Mark, that was a good goal. I'm trying to think when we last saw a player break in a one-on-one situation, because it was just inside the centre circle, or just outside where he won it, wasn't it? Mark.
Yeah, I think it was a bit further up the pitch. Actually, I mean, he won a great tackle in the centre circle last week against Derby when Mehmeti failed to score. Brilliant tackle. It may have been on Dion Sanderson last week. But Hughes is 21, 22. He's only 22 next month. So I just thought I'd look that up because yet again I felt it's another rising player. Honestly, I need to do my research. You got him up when Dave's on. You got up your game. You see, then this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
So he smacked it through the keeper, through Pander. But I mean, it's pace across the ground. over 10 meters, lightning fast. Yeah, never looked like he was going to miss. You're absolutely right. Sheer power, keeper.
Excuse me. On to half time. Although saying before we say that, somebody put on the text comment about that trap of the ball that Gerhard did when some clearance went to him. It was a tidy tap for somebody who had a job in insurance for a period before he probably got into football management. And I've got a lovely little graphic that I'm going to put up of Gerhard sometime in the week of the international break, because he did say he's going to go back to Austria. He's a guy that likes to strike a balance between work and personal life. I think he said this was at Senior Reds, so it's not that I met Gerhard with 125 other people at Senior Reds. Yes, I did interview him, but he didn't sit down for the whole lunch. He was just there for that 20-minute interview. But he likes to go up in the hills. And getting back to the graphic, Tom, who works for me, because I can't do these things, we've got a picture of Julie Andrews in The Sound of Music as she comes across the hills, and we've placed Gerhard's head on that picture. So I might even put that up later on today. Gerhard's head.
Are those a few of your favourite things, David?
It's something like that. Gerhard without his cap, which was the first time, I think, touchline we've seen. Gerhard's head looks like the London Planetarium, which used to be levied at the commentator Brian Moore. He took his cap off in the second half.
Half biscuits,
only the second manager. No, or did Tony Pulis used to wear a hat to games? Didn't he?
It looked like.
And obviously
like
Benny Lennartson, the famous red hat.
Never
and if it gets thrown up into the air, then hopefully some Polish businessman won't take it off the kid that caught it.
Oh, yes.
You've seen what happened in the news the other day at tennis tournament.
I saw it today, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm guessing when Gerhard brought that ball out of the air, that was a Von trap then, was it? Is that what you're trying to say?
Fabulous.
Well, do re me. He's going back to pick Edelweiss.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll be here so long, we'll say Struber has been here for 1,000 years.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be saying Uber for Struber. If things
you don't want to say Uber for Struber. I came up with that. It's a bad one, but also about the manager who stares a lot, Sterhard Gruber.
Well, he always seems to have a smile on his face.
He does. Very positive. Great. Comes across well.
Darm has said Bob Stokoe had the most famous hat. I'll trump that by saying, what about Malcolm Allison's fedora? Those of you that are old enough to remember.
I do. Yeah.
Anyway, into the second half, and Vitek did one decent save from a Slater shot, but that was his sheer size. Made it look easy, really, for him. Dave, on 53 minutes, Sykes, it was his last piece of action, set the ball up for Rees, and he hit the bar when maybe he was looking for that hat trick and might have been a bit more composed. What did you think of that chance?
I think he was running out of room, and I think he's just tried to dink it to the far post, either for himself or for hopefully one of our players to run onto. But he was running out of room, so kind of forgive him that. But he just gives us a different option up there, doesn't he?
And the substitution. Sykes didn't look massively impressed at coming off after only 8 minutes. I mean, is that a substitution that could have been done on the hour a la Liam, or Struber does things his own way? Because he used to use the 3 breaks you're allowed in each half to do substitutions yesterday. But what do you think?
I think there's going to be lots of things where we're going to say Struber does things different to convention, and I think I've got no idea why he did it then, or could have done it at halftime, could have done it a bit later, but sensible enough sub, keep the players rotating. I know Sykes only had 45 minutes in the week, but he played a big part of the Derby game before, so I'm sure he's just kind of managing a few players' minutes.
Tom from Romin's Nest, he was surprised to see Sykes come off. I thought he played well, but it worked out because you was mega. Totally agree with that. Nick Hamblin, referring to our earlier comments about Bob Stokoe's hat and Malcolm Allison's fedora, no idea who you old gits are talking about. Well, it's a bit of an insult to Dave, possibly Mark as well, because
I remember them all.
I know all about Bob Stokoe. Yeah. Some of the manager played for Newcastle. He was
73.
also he was also there when Brian Clough's career ended. I think it was against Bury in like January 61, 62, and he broke his leg so badly. And apparently Stokoe turned around and said, he's codding you, ref. He thought he was lying there trying to get a penalty when he was in absolute agony. So I think Clough hated Stokoe for the rest of his career.
There you go. Another fact there. Okay, so Vitek saved a shot from Drameh, but then Dave, the save of the match, 59 minutes, Drameh's cross, McBurney header. He seems to pull one of these out of the bag every game almost, really, doesn't he?
Yeah, very good. He's, for a guy who's, 6'6", something like that. He does get down very, very well. And, it was a good, strong arm as well, wasn't it? It was really good save. I think McBurney was shocked that he hadn't scored, So, really, really good save. And that's what you want for your keeper, isn't it? They're kind of
a critical point.
Potentially match defining situation, wouldn't it? If game goes 3-2, it becomes a bit different then, doesn't it? So, the incredible thing was, less than 20 seconds later, we're hitting the bar ourselves, aren't we? So,
well, that was coming on to my next point. I mean, I've watched it back.
It was actually a double save because there was a shot before that he saved, and then it was recycled to McBurney.
Yeah, that's right. That was a shot from Drameh.
And what tells you it's a great save is the reaction of the player, of McBurney. When the player's got a head in his hands, it's saying, how did he save that?
How did he keep that
the
up?
way he scoops the ball away. But like I said, I think Radek Vitek is going to save us a number of points this season.
Oh, absolutely.
Size, dominant in the air from corners, not bad distribution, could improve a bit. Hits the ball long, got a good throw on him, but his ability for a man who's 6'6" to get down low and make great saves. That could be the difference between a top 6 place and the top 10, definitely.
That you use the term scooping it out, but let me just, I've got to pick up a comment here that Tom of Robin's Nest has put up. Video of the Vitek save, a Man United fan uploaded it to X, and it's already got 500,000 views, right?
They want him back. That's why, because of the
if you look at Onana and Bayanya or whatever, he doesn't look inferior to either of those, does he? But you use the term Mark Scoop. I looked at it a couple of times, and obviously we do have goal line technology, and this is probably what makes me think what I'm going to say, that the crook of his arm is behind the line. As you say, he's sort of scooping it out like that. This is no good if you're listening onto a podcast, but I'm moving my arm slightly bent.
Yeah.
It obviously it didn't go over the line, but it was a scoop out at the couple of millimeters, and it would have been over the line, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there were times last season when Max O'Leary, he had soft palms and was pushing the ball up into the air. I mean, especially against Middlesbrough, for example, when Conway, I think, headed the ball in. So he's got good, strong arms as well. That's what you need from a keeper. You need to push. When you have shots, you need to push the ball out wide, because there's a good chance that a player following in will get a tap in at some point. So he's able to push the ball out. But I think it might have been Hirakawa or another player that cleared it. And I have to mention Yu's work rate up and down the line. He was getting his body between him and players who were far stronger than him.
Yeah.
So in an attacking set, I mean, he's there to be an attacking wing back, but as a defensive pest for a man who is only 5 foot something, I thought he was absolutely terrific. Didn't expect him to play on the right. Thought he'd swap with McCrory, but I don't think that he'll be playing right wing back for much longer. But I think he was just amazing.
He was good. There was one occasion as well.
Sheer work rate was brilliant.
One occasion as well when he burst forward, and he hit the shot. I mean, we haven't seen players, Dave. We haven't seen players showing the attacking intent like we've seen, and obviously a lot in this game in particular. But we haven't seen that attacking intent for years, have we?
No, we haven't. I think one of the things I look for when I'm looking at players, I look at how much purpose is there in what they do, and I think too many times I look at kind of City over the years and think we kind of like jog into positions. We don't kind of really give the person on the ball, a clear, view that, yeah, I want the ball and I'm making the run there. Pretty much everything's done with purpose now. And I think that's why we're seeing the results. We're able to get the ball forward quicker because people are moving. We didn't see. I think it might have happened once yesterday, but there's that little ball where the right fullback or right wing back plays it into Knight, but it's almost kind of behind him. But that's one of the triggers for him to then wrap his foot around it and knock a ball into the channel. Reece is already on his bike. He knows what's happening. It's all kind of pre-prepared in some respects, but they know what movements they need to make in certain situations, and therefore the players are confident to knock the pass, thinking that there's someone going to be running onto it, and the player who's running onto it knows the pass is coming, and that's half the battle, I think.
Yeah. And it picks up on what you said earlier about Scott Twine, that is now looking to go forward and finding that there are spaces in front of him. He's not having to look back all the time, and you're not going to be berated for losing possession. You mentioned, Dave, a moment ago, or it might have been Mark, Reece set up Mehmeti, who hit the bar. Yeah, I think we hit the woodwork 3 times, according to BBC, but maybe the third time was the ball that went in the back of the net. But the substitution, Dave, on 72 minutes, that's a favourite time for Gerhard to make substitutions. But rather than take Randall off, and we'll talk about Randall in a moment, he took off Scott Twine and brought on Bird. And for me, in the last 2 games, taking off, the last 2 2 league games, taking off Randall with 20 minutes to go, we lost the legs, the busy bee. We lost half the busy bee combination in midfield. But that, to me, was the right substitution this time. Bird coming into that position at that time rather than Randall coming off.
Yeah, it's really funny, the kind of narrative that's come out of the previous game, certainly the Derby game. We've taken off Randall and we've sat back. Yeah, we've brought on Bird, who's a more attacking player. So I think as fans we have to kind of, sometimes shit happens, doesn't it? And the goal that Morris scored, happened in a low scoring sport. One moment like that can kind of ruin a whole 90 minutes. But I think Gerhard's intent is to keep going and playing attacking football by the looks of it. But yesterday the sub worked lovely, didn't it? Because Randall, who we've gone how many minutes into this? 40 odd minutes into this program. It's probably the first time we've really mentioned him, and he was excellent. I know we'll talk a bit more about him later, but it allowed Bird to play further forward. It allowed him to play against a tiring defence in a stretch game, which was probably ideal as well. And he did exactly what we wanted from him, didn't he? Not only did he score a goal, he had a shot that grazed the top of the bar as well.
Yes, he did. When
was the last time we saw Max Bird kind of striding forward from like 40 yards out and having a dip? One of my criticisms of Bird, and I really like him as a footballer, is I don't think he does quite enough in games, or in enough of games.
Yeah.
He's that
Dave picks up on. That's been my comment about him, and when he's come back with these substitute appearances in the past, he's looked a bit leggy and what have you. He's just got a style that you just described it. He burst forward a couple of times and unleashed these shots, and I think he got a goal for Derby in a playoff or something in a big game
against Carlisle.
Game that got them promoted, wasn't it?
Yeah, against Carlisle 2 seasons ago. He came off the right side and hit the ball from about 30 yards into the opposite corner. It was an absolute belter.
But
we saw what he did against Preston last year and showed how expressive he can be. That's the Max Bird that we want to see. But playing in that Twine role, again, it allowed him to play in what's effectively a front 3. He found space in the middle of the pitch where Twine was able to stride forward, hit that ball, and through the keeper's hands and smack the bar, deserved a goal, and was on the spot for the goal that we'll come on to.
Yeah,
and I think that's where we like him to play, because he will score a lot more goals.
Let's talk about Randall before we talk about the goal, which we sort of started talking about anyway. But Alan Gwinnell's made a point here. Look, he said recruitment have done well with Randall and Reece, and this is the issue when you're at this level, because I would argue right now that in Randall and Reece, who I think we paid 400 or 500 grand for Randall, and Reece was out of contract anyway. Yeah. For me, I'm not trying to defend anybody here, but based on what we've seen so far, right, Randall and Reece, for me, negate to some extent the complete and utter cock-up that was bringing in Armstrong and Mayulu, because those two, what we've spent on those two, well, it makes the other two look really bad for what we paid for them. But talking about Randall, Dave, was it you, I think, or somebody on one of the social media platforms talked about Randall always looking over his shoulder, looking to whatever's available. He was immense yesterday, and I put at half-time, he is becoming more Jason Knight than Jason Knight, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I think what he's giving Jason Knight is the opportunity probably to be a bit more of what the true Jason Knight is. And that's being a bit more kind of forward thinking. Whereas Randall's, I'm not saying he's sitting in because he's not, he's up and back as well. But Jason Knight that we signed isn't a number 10, he isn't a number 6. He's an 8. He's someone who gets forward and helps. And I think although we've not probably seen some of the end product from Knight yet, some of his passing and kind of his probing and prompting in that final third has gone up a notch for me. But yeah, Randall facilitates that. I could say here that over 3 years ago, I tweeted Brian Tinian in a private message about Adam Randall and said we should be all over this guy. So I'm glad we've got him. And I don't think it's stellar recruitment for him or Reece, really. To be honest, if you'd have to have your head up your arse to not think those two players might not be bad ideas to sign for Bristol City, but we got them over the line, and that's the important thing. Certainly Emile Reece on a free transfer is a no-brainer. Adam Randall on a relegation release clause is a no-brainer for me. Those are good solid recruitment. As you said, Dave, it's where we've gone off piste a bit is where we've suffered. I think we've got a little market that we know and we tread pretty well. We've done that with Dickey, we've done that with Bird, we've done it with Knight, we've done it with Sykes, all those kind of players. Where we've gone off that that track is where we've struggled, and we've spent a lot of money, and we're lumbered to some extent with £4 million worth of signing, and we're nowhere near being
wages
started.
For another
plus
2.5
well,
and another 3 seasons effectively.
Randall's great. He's got a lot to his game. He carried Plymouth last year. I thought he was on his own. He was playing like a midfield 3 last year. Yeah. Some of the Plymouth fans who said, he was rubbish last year. I know they watch him every week, but every time I saw him, I thought, bloody hell, what a good player.
Yeah. Dave, do you think Knight needs a rest? Were you surprised that he, or do you, because you've pulled a face there. What you're saying is some players have just got it in their locker that they can play every minute of every game.
He's incredible, isn't he? He does have the odd, and when I talk about the odd bad game, he probably had 3 last season, and when he didn't play well, the whole side suffered. But he just seems to be able to play and play and play. I think someone said they bumped into him in Portishead out for a walk with his wife, and I said I was really disappointed that Jason Knight walks anywhere. I thought he just ran everywhere.
Yeah.
But
and congratulations to them. Advanced congratulations, because he's going to be he's going to have a few sleepless nights in about 8 months' time or whenever she's due. Hopefully, that's not when we're we need him at 100% peak form when we're going for the playoffs towards the end of the season. But I don't think top 2. It'd be lovely to be top 2, but based on where we're doing at the moment, playoffs looks achievable. Let's put it this way. We only got to get another 60 points to equal last season's points total. Goodness me, we've still got over 40 games to play. That's an extrapolation for those of you that are doing the FBC bingo. Mark, the 4th goal, Mehmeti, the provider, and in off the bar. Yeah. Great. Put us in total domination then, wasn't it?
Yeah, great strike by Max Bird, and it was going in the net. I think I was listening to the Sky commentary. I mean, you can get these. Usually, you have to wait for you get about 15 minutes of good highlights on the Sky condensed clips. He said it always seems to look better when it goes in off the bar. For some reason, I thought it was an interesting comment. Yeah, I mean the ball was rising, but he controlled the ball brilliantly in the area, side-footed it up, and it was in. It's absolutely great. It just emphasised our total dominance on the game, and players who were just looking so confident. The side didn't need major surgery in the summer; just needed a few additions. Like Dave said, we were hamstrung by certain players. Those investments didn't work out, but in those two signings and with VTech, like I said, it didn't need major surgery. We got most of the players that we've had seem to be playing with more confidence. They're playing with a big smile on their face, and I think we can still play better than that.
No, I think you're right. And look at the players that are out. I'm not saying they're all going to walk back in, but they're just going to make the players be on their toes. And that's another thing I'm going to make.
And it will make the squad that much stronger. So that's the great thing. But wave upon wave of attack and the sheer number of shots that we had on goal.
Talking about show ponies, Dave, and wasted money on transfers. Casey Palmer, his hair seems to get longer and longer. 4.2 million we paid for him, and he went out the door for a square root of nothing, didn't he? Zilch.
He did.
A la Famara Deju. Look at that. I mean, allowing for inflation. This is several years, 4 or 5 years ago now. There's 9 million. Well, and Callas went out the door for nothing. Look at all the players that have gone out for nothing under a previous regime. And by regime, I'm talking about transfer acquisition. But Casey Palmer, his career's gone now, isn't it? He came here from Chelsea, one for the future, but he's not materialised, has he?
No, he hasn't. He's plateaued at being a squad stroke first team player at championship level, hasn't he? So, which is, no disgrace, is it? But, I suspect he thought his career might go a bit better than it has. It's not a bad career. Probably settle for it.
He's had a championship career, hasn't it? It's all been a championship.
It's not to be sniffed at, in fairness. I think, there's a lot of players that go through Premier League academies that don't make it even to championship level. There's a lot of people who don't even make it as pros. I think it's something like it's like between 1% and 3%. I think of Premier League academy players play Premier League, let alone have a career in Premier League. Is a absolutely a massive drop off. So I think easy to kind of have a go at Casey Palmer. We paid the money for him stupidly, didn't we? I probably wasn't unhappy with it when we signed him at the time, but I think
it's the same. Wasn't it at the same time as Smodics? And I think he'd gone. I think
it was. We signed Smodics because we couldn't get Palmer, and then we got Palmer was on. Patterson out to Derby because
we wanted Palmer, and I think Lee Johnson said we want him for pre-season. I remember Frank Lampard had taken over as manager at Chelsea, and I think he played in the pre-season tour of Ireland, and then surprise, we go back in and buy Palmer, even though he got Smodic. So it's a bit strange.
Well, that wasn't that unlike last year, getting earthy, thinking we weren't going to get Twine and then getting both. Got to talk about substitutions on the 83rd minute. A double, was it a triple substitution effectively, because we had Tanner coming on for Rob Atkinson, who looked good despite that error. But then we had no Sinclair Armstrong, didn't even make the bench yesterday. But then we had, on 83 minutes, we had Fali Mayulu coming on for Anis Mehmeti. But wait for this, on 84, Cornick, Harry, coming on for Reese. Mark, we didn't think we'd ever see Cornick on the field. He was just on the bench to make up numbers. But he didn't do too bad, other than one pass that he tried with the outside of his foot that just ran out of steam like a flat Duracell battery, wasn't it, that pass?
Yeah, I think we're playing more down the right. I'd like to have seen him more on the ball. I mean, it's sometimes you think Harry Cornick gets bigger cheer. He gets the biggest cheer of the afternoon for being Harry Cornick. He's just seen as a really nice guy. But no, I didn't expect to see him on the pitch. But it was nice to see him get some minutes. I would rather have seen him on the pitch at the end of the Derby game, because I think his sheer energy would have made it hard for them to play out from the back. Yeah. And we could have got the ball stuck in the corner rather than sat back and invited that goal that the commentators were saying that we were sleepwalking towards. So, yeah, I mean, Cornick's an employee of Bristol City. There may be offers for him. There was an offer on the table last year from Mill, I understand, but he didn't want to move. Contracts cut both ways. He's contracted to July 2026. If he wants to move and the right offer comes in, he'll go. And he's a Bristol City player, and he will give his hardest when given the opportunity. So fair play. That's all I can say.
Dave, Mayulu, he had a cameo at Fulham, I think, didn't he? Yeah, he came on. I thought he looked okay yesterday.
I think there's a bit of confidence from Mayulu and himself, but I think for me the biggest thing, in certainly the way we're playing at the moment, it's only 4/6 games in, is I think the players were confident when they knocked balls into him, they might get the ball back. And you see that. And I said when he signed, he's a player who plays off his first touch. Everything is about trying to get the ball into him and lay off first time for runners. And if you get runners around him, there's an opportunity there that he might become more effective for us. But cameos of what we've seen so far, I think there's we have to be careful not to have too big a leap of faith that suddenly Fally Mayulu's going to come good. Hopefully he does. Otherwise, there's a lot of money down the drain. But at least there's a bit more encouraging signs. At least he's not isolated up there like he was a few times last season when he played, where he just got no one around him, and that's not his game.
I think. I mean, if you look at the four misfits, that's Sinclair, Armstrong, Fally, Bell, and Cornick. I think Fally happens to be the most expensive one. I think he's the one that, in some shape or form, is worth giving a second chance to, because he seems to be popular. He doesn't seem to have. I mean, people have said to me, Armstrong's got a little bit of seems to have a chip on his shoulder a little bit as well. What say you to that comment, Dave?
I think we're in that kind of mode of who's the least worst of those four, aren't we? And I think it probably changes most weeks at the moment. Even Sinclair Armstrong is, the Derby game when he came on for Reece when he got injured, he did some decent things. But I think the problem is he's almost like not doing it for himself selfishly. He's making runs and he's kind of not in sync with the rest of the team, and therefore we get a bit fragmented off him. And Fally's out of the four is by far the better technical footballer. Yeah. But there's a lot more to being a footballer and just having the technique in there.
Totally agree. You need to be that level of intensity. Cruiser's Creek has rightly picked me up. Armstrong was on the bench yesterday. What I meant to say was he didn't get on the pitch. So well picked up, Cruiser's Creek. I was going to mention that anyway. Dave, I'll ask Mark the same question. We let them in the last minute of injury time, 4-2, Kyle Joseph. Won't be massively disappointed about conceding a goal because it was, or will we? Would that have hurt our pride a little bit just to let that one in, or what do you think?
If you want to go out there and play the kind of football we're playing, at times you've got to expect that you're going to concede some goals as well. And I think right at the top of the programme, Dave, you said Hull played their part, and it sometimes takes two to tango. City don't play such an open game if Hull don't play such an open game. So 4-2.
Or as we said, the final score could have been 7-4 or something like that, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah.
Mark, referee Gavin Ward, somebody described him on the forum, I seem to recall, as a little four-letter word beginning with C that I often call my 6-month-old Labrador when he's chewing the corner of my desk or shoes or God knows what else.
That's not puddles, then. That's too long.
Yeah. I thought he wasn't the worst referee we've seen, was he?
No, he let a few things go, but no. I mean, if referees you don't notice them, then they've had a good game. I was watching the Middlesbrough highlights yesterday earlier, and I think Civi Peck, put a challenge right over, on the instep of one of their players, and VAR would have got him sent off. There was nothing controversial about any of the incidents yesterday. It was a free-flowing game of football. The ball was on the pitch for a lot of the time. I mean, their final goal was actually a it was a bit lucky. I think we fell asleep at the back, but Burnley's shot was deflected into the path of Joseph. Tanner should have been quicker to the ball, but I think they deserved that goal. But yeah, if you don't notice the referee and the game's free flowing, it's great, isn't it? Because you didn't have many decisions to make. You didn't have to worry about flying tackles. You didn't have to worry about professional fouls or taking players out. You can just wave his arms and let the assistant referee come into play when they're offside. And there were quite a few, weren't there? Akintola was falling foul in the first half. City's line to an extent was working well. Sometimes it won't because we'll get found out. Yeah, Gavin Ward did a good job.
Dave, there were appeals for a pen in the second half, but it was one of those where the referee, he's going to interpret that, but with ball to hand and at pace, the guy couldn't get out of the way, could he?
I couldn't see it clear enough, Dave, to be honest.
No.
So yeah,
I couldn't see much reference made to it. And Steve has made the comment.
Steve's just I was just about to say that.
You're picking up on Steve's comment. Referees letting a bit more physical contact happen.
That's their directive this season, is to let more of that go. So I guess we talk a little bit about Adam Randall earlier. I think that's another thing that he brings to us. I quite like the tackle he made on Ebu Adams against Derby last Friday night, which left Adams in a crumpled heap on the floor. It was a nice fair tackle, but he tackled strong. I kind of said pre-season someone said, well, what's his game like? And I said don't get the comparison wrong, but he's a bit like Jerry Gow in some respects. And I think yesterday was one of those kind of performances, from when I remember watching Gow kind of like driving the team forward from midfield. Yeah. That was exactly what he did. So
no, I agree.
His earrings there were not allowed to swear.
Yeah. No, I think with him and Knight, we've got, and Williams in the wings when he's fit. Williams he's not got the energy of Knight, but he's got the bite of Randall. So I think when Williams comes back, I think we're secure in that department. Those are the top two. Yeah. I always felt that Randall was bought in anticipation of Knight being sold, and it's all gone quiet on that front.
Randall is our midfield general at the moment.
He is.
I mean, it's his ball recovery. It's running back, retrieving tackles, which is so much more important. But he's always looking up. He's always looking to go forward. And if he loses the ball, he's always looking to recover. We see some players who drift along and it drive you absolutely bonkers. But he's not one of them. He works under 10, under 20%. But yeah, I think it's you've got, I think, a little bit disingenuous to the late Jerry. Not quite there yet.
No, you got to score 14 goals in one season. Jerry got 14.
Randall, but £500,000, that's an absolute bargain for a player who's absolute snip.
But Jerry had goals in his game as well, which is something thus far that Knight and Randall don't have. I think it was 71, 72 season.
I can also remember in an FA Cup final in the first game, he just kicked lumps out of Ozzy Ardiles.
He did.
It was just a delight to watch.
Yeah. Nick Hamblin, a couple of things Nick said on the text feed. We have talked about Messi missing a sitter. That was the one where he hit the bar with it, because if he'd have placed it instead of whack it, it probably would have gone in. He could have rolled that one in. And Randall's maybe, Nick Hamblin against it. Randall maybe spells the end of Joe Williams' City career. I think Joe is one of those players that his career has never really got going, as much of his due to his fitness record as anything else. But look, I mean, let's look 4 games in. Not going to do any extrapolations. Tommy Conway on the mark for Borough yesterday, the only team with a 100% record, 4 wins out of 4. Sheffield United struggling away at the bottom. Not good for them. They were predicted to be right up there, but they're not. West Brom, they're in second place. So those are the top 2. 2 of our challengers that we sort of knocked out the way on our drive to the playoffs last season. They're coming on strong, but it's far too early to talk about league positions. What we've got coming up, David. What?
I can remember years ago when Sunderland were in trouble financially, Niall Quinn was manager for about 5 minutes, lost their first 4 games. Roy Keane took over, and they won the title. Football's a funny old game. Things can just switch.
But if we look at the next block of games, I think I'm right in saying this, the next block of games between now and the next international break. So we'll have 9 games gone when the international break comes. It's Sheffield Wednesday away. It's then Oxford United at home. And then it's Preston away, Ipswich home, and then home against QPR. So of those 5 games, you look at 4 of them. No, you look at all 5 games because Ipswich aren't pulling up trees at the moment. They're all winnable games. I'd like us to be coming up against a Coventry, West Brom or Borough at the moment because that'll be a true test, in my view, of our credentials. Right, we're recording this on Sunday morning. The window shuts at 10 o'clock on Monday evening. Little birdie told me, just somebody that I gave a lift home yesterday in the cartoon, Neil, that we've got a striker lined up on loan coming from abroad. Let's believe that when we see it. But the big talk, and it was in Bristol Live, Zach Viner, Wrexham coming in with a derisory bid of 1.75 million being turned down. Dave, Zach, 28 years old, been at the club a long time, playing okay. Allegedly the highest wage earner at the club, 1.75 million. Struber said after match he hopes Zach Viner will be a Bristol City player come midnight tomorrow night still, right? But if Wrexham come back with 2.5, he's gone. Surely 7 o'clock the window closes, not 11. Dave, 2.5 million.
I tell them to piss off, Dave, if they only offer.
Well, when you look at Charlie Hughes for 10 million, I mean, Zach's still got 4 good years in him, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I think once again, none of us know what wages the players are on. Yeah, allegedly Zach, when he signed his contract, became one of the highest, if not the highest earners at the club. And once again, of all these things, we never know how much is basic, how much is bonus related, and all that kind of stuff. So, but since then, we've signed Emil Rees, we've signed Scott Twine. It would not surprise me if Zach Viner is no longer the highest paid player in the club. And I think he's been absolutely excellent this season so far. I think we have to be mindful of the way that Struber's football is kind of evolving, that someone like Viner is going to be really important to it. And, that there will become a point where any kind of bid that we get from a club might be too much to turn down, but I don't think it is at the moment. What we don't know as well is how much Zach Viner wants to leave versus how much does he want to stay, and how much does he want to stay for the right money. And until we know that, and hopefully it'll pass, this window will pass by and he's still here. For me, and you hear rumours, he wants X and he wants Y. I pay him, or I certainly try and find some compromise in there because I think he's an important player for us, and I don't think you're going to go out and replace him easily either. So we keep talking about. This
is my take. This is my take on it, Dave. I looked at it, and you're thinking, yeah, he's right. He's the best. Say he's the best. He's the quickest of the 4 players currently competing for those 3 central places. He's quicker than Dickey, Atkinson, and Tanner. Yeah. And arguably, is he the best of the bunch? I don't know. I mean, Dickey still looks a bit ponderous to me. I still can't get over that sort of body position for Fulham's second goal. He looked all over the place, and he's a bit slow. So he's the quickest. That wasn't his fault, though, was it? That was someone. No.
That was someone lost the marker. He's just trying to get a block.
I know. He just, that's harsh. But I look at it this way: our best right-sided defender is McNally, who's going to be available in the new year, but. We don't know how quickly he's going to get back up to 4.
I thought he was a left-sided. Is he? He's
right. No, he played on the left. He played on the left.
Right-sided, Mark.
He's right-sided. He played on the left out of necessity last year.
Yeah.
Right. I thought
so. We have a ready-made player. A bit like we've signed Vitek on loan till January, or Man United have a recall, right? A recall. We could let Viner go because his value is going to be nothing if he walks in the summer. Or it's going to be probably half if we let him go in January. We could let Viner go. We've got Knight LaBelle in the background, although I think he's injured at the moment. We've even got Ross.
No, he's not. He's not injured.
Right. Okay, no. Knight LaBelle in the background. Ross McCrory has played in that position in the past on the right-hand side, right? So I don't want Zach to go because I think makeup of the team is pretty sound at the moment. But I just think, if they matched his existing wage deal, as you say, he still might not be the most expensive player at the club because of, as you've said, Dave, the wages that Reece and Twine might be on, but he could offer him the same deal, yeah? And on that basis, I'd like him to stay. But if he's wanting another $5,000 a week and Wrexham are prepared to match that, once they match the valuation that the club place on him, and I'll call it 2.5 million, although I think it should be 500,000 more than that at least, I think he'll go. Because that will give Struber the headroom to bring in in inverted commas, 2, but I'd really like 3 players that he alluded to in the post-match press conference. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I mean, it's 28 hours, less than a day away, or a day away.
If we're selling our first team regular players to a club like Wrexham to bring in a striker who's probably there to be, a squad player, someone to play alongside. I think we're going about it the wrong way. I know there is a financial point where it hits and you have to do it, but I'd pay Zach Viner $5,000 more a week.
Would you? Oh, it's a cheaper option than going out and signing. Yeah, Dave. No, you're right.
Jesus,
do you agree with that, Mark?
We're trying to move this club forward. I think if we're selling our better players, then I'm not going to say we might as well pack up and go home, but that's kind of the sentiments of it at the moment. What we need to be doing is keeping our best players and getting rid of the fringe players. If we can get rid of any of Cornick, Bell, Sinclair, and Maulu, you could afford to give $5,000 to Zach Viner. You can afford to give it to Anis Mehmeti. You could afford to give it to Ross McCrory. You pay for all of those people. You
right.
Keep the best players together. Our retention strategy needs a serious look at. It really does.
Yeah,
I think we're still.
And that's why we've got all these players out of contract in the summer, because it's just been allowed to drift.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, Dave. The word drift is. There's no way we should be going into this window without having clear plans. And we already should have Viner, Mehmeti, or whatever tied down. Now, I appreciate with Mehmeti, he might have felt, actually, I don't want to sign a new contract at the back end of last season because Manning started leaving him out of the team. So that's a slightly different dynamic. But players like Viner, we should have had him nailed down 6 months ago.
Yeah.
We can't. We let things drift.
Yeah. Dave, Mark, do you concur?
Yeah, the only player of real pace, very reliable player this season. Huge risk to let him go with the lack of depth that we got in defence. To be the make weight in a possible deal to bring in a second string forward. I think that's a massive risk. That is a wrong decision to make. There are other players that we can shift out depending on their interest. That I'd say I'd add even add Hayden Roberts to that, because I think he's not being looked at as a left wing back, because we've got a settle back 3, so he's not even been brought on. He got a few minutes, I think, against Fulham. Don't know if he came on against Derby. Yeah, but I wouldn't let Zach Viner go. I think that's a very good argument that Dave's framed up about paying in those wages. Get rid of the other players, pay him a few grand more.
Well, I agree.
He's far too important to us right now to lose. To be a make weight in that. I mean, the Wrexham project, and it is a project, it's quite an exciting one. It might be quite attractive to him and his family to get a few grand more a week to move to North Wales. But he's loved by the fans
he is loved.
Should ensure that he stays by I'd increase his
he is loved, but as some people say, he's got a rick in him. He plays like he's got a rick in him sometimes, But
I think all the defenders have played like that.
Well, they have, even Atkinson.
If Rob Dickey getting beaten to the ball by Kiefer Moore, if we give that penalty away. I mean, there's ricks in all of those players. Otherwise, they'd be playing at a higher level. But Zach Viner for us has been too good.
Lee Churches makes a point here. Pring made his intention early by signing maybe some want away, because at the end of the day, you got to offer. I mean, I've just come up with, if you take the combined wages, Dave, tell me if you think this feels broadly right. But if you took the combined wages of Sinclair Armstrong, Harry Cornick, and Sam Bell across those three, 25 grand a week. If you could shift those three out, and I'm leaving Mayulu as the one I want to keep, that's 25 grand a week. You know, you could give Zach his 5 grand a week over and above what he's got at the moment, and your cash flow is you've not had to have a transfer fee, and you've got a player that you know is settled and knows what it's all about, don't you?
Exactly right. You know, I had a bit of a debate with someone on OTIB in the week around, you know, if you pay Zach more, it'll create disharmony in the dressing room. There's already disparity between the wages of certain players in the dressing room and others. That's football. You get on with it. If you want to earn the big money, you have to play better. And someone like Viner's playing well. He's an important part of the team. I think we have to move away from this kind of ceiling that we put in place post-COVID under Richard and Nigel, where we kind of had this, you know, mythical 15 grand a week wage limit. That's the most we can pay. And in fairness, you know, Richard explained it's a bit of a sweet spot for attracting players at that point. But since then, you know, we've come out of COVID. We've had a new TV deal that adds a load more money. What are we doing with our money otherwise?
What are we doing?
The club has moved forward now. We're now in a different kind of place to what we were coming out of COVID, where we were trying to rebuild. We've done the rebuilding to an extent. We now need to keep our assets. And, you know, the whole philosophy should be get rid of some of those fringe players that are taking up, and you bring through the academy. And that's the model. I'm sure that Gerhard would rather
absolutely. And the academy,
players out your first team, and have a couple of academy players a bit further up the food chain. And that's where it's cheaper, aren't they?
Yeah,
and
that's where it's
disappointing. I thought after the FA Youth Cup semi-final a couple of seasons ago against Man City, that made the future look bright, and some of those players like the Tane Andersons were going to be stepping up and you know, being in the first team squad, but it didn't seem to happen, especially last season. I mean, Elijah Morrison and Tom Sutton point this out. You know, the total number of minutes was Elijah with about 40, wasn't it? David can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's about it, wasn't it? Really,
it was no. And look, and that's the situation at the moment. You know, the academy. You know, Elijah Morrison is paying for it. He seems a million miles away. If Hayden Roberts is getting selected and we're naming 4 strikers on the bench, what's
he's not even getting selected, is he? Hayden Roberts,
he's not getting selected in the team. So no, look, I mean, look, we're positive. It's a good place to be going into the window. We know we're not always great when we come out of international breaks, but we are where we are. We're nestled in the playoffs. If you said, 42 games time, we're where we are now, and the league table looked like it looks right now with those teams in the top 6, you'd say, fancy our chances in the playoffs. You know, but it's a long way to go. But look, I think we're done for today. Thanks to everybody that's watched us live. We will be doing some sort of mini review of the season so far. I know Chris Honor is said he's going to come on in the next week or so. So we'll do something for that. And then we'll be back with a review of Sheffield Wednesday. What's that? It's Saturday kickoff. I think Dave Tuvey will be hosting that one.
Does anybody know why the Oxford game is a Sunday kickoff?
No idea. Maybe because it's to do with the fact that they need to get the ground back to some semblance of normality after the rugby. I don't know the dates.
Yeah, I think I know there's Rugby World Cup semi-finals, isn't there? I think both of them have been played at Aston Gate, so maybe that's it.
Yeah. So, look, we are where we are. But Dave, as always, thanks for coming on. You too, Mark, everybody who's watched. Have a great international break. It's going to get exciting. If there's this significant transfer stuff, then we might do a transfer deadline day special.
It's like waiting for Christmas Day, David, isn't it? You know,
I'm more likely to do a look at the transfer thing when we do our sort of review at the end of the first 4. Well, we've had 6 competitive games, so I think we've got some idea what Super Bowl is like, and if it carries on, if it's 80% as good as yesterday was against Hull City. Absolutely fantastic. We're going to have an enjoyable season to watch. We'd sooner see games 4-3, 4-2 than 2-1, 1-0 and stuff like that. So everybody's happy. But in the meantime, everybody have a great week, and thanks for listening.